In the ancient desert, time seemed endless. The wind sculpted dunes into waves of sand. The sun burned by day, the cold cut by night. Here lived the Arabs, a people forged by extremes. Before the message of Islam, Arabia was a mosaic of tribes. Some lived in tents under star-filled skies. Others built cities of stone and mud brick. Their lives were defined by survival, honor, and memory. Historians divide the Arabs into groups. There were the extinct Arabs. These were tribes lost to time. Thamūd, Chasm, Jadkis. Legends say they were mighty, but they fell to divine wrath. Lived in Al-Akaf, building grand structures. They defied warnings and were wiped away by relentless winds. Thamūd carved homes into mountains at Al-Wijr. They killed the she-camel and faced destruction by a terrible cry. These stories weren't just myths. They were warnings passed from father to son, proof that arrogance led to ruin. A moral carved in the heart of Arabia. After them came the remaining Arabs, divided into Kakuni and Adnan lineages. Kakuni Arabs claimed ancestry from Kakun. They settled in the lush south of Arabia. Their lands had rivers, terraces, and dams. Rain was rare but precious, caught in canals. They mastered farming on the mountainsides. They grew frankincense and myrrh, traded across seas. Saba was their crown jewel. The kingdom of Saba rose in Yemen's fertile valleys. They built the Mrib Dam, a marvel of ancient engineering. Water turned deserts green, feeding generations. They traded with Africa, India, the Mediterranean. Camel caravans crossed the empty quarter. Ships carried goods to Egypt and Rome. Wealth flowed, and temples rose to honor their gods. The Queen of Saba visited Solomon, legends say. A meeting of power and wisdom. Her kingdom became a symbol of Arabian splendor. Saba was not merely a tribe, but a civilization. After Saba, Ḥimyar gained power. They ruled vast lands in southern Arabia. Ḥimyarites adopted Judaism at one point. They clashed with the Christian Aksumite kingdom of Abyssinia. Stories tell of Du Nuwas, a Ḥimyarite king. He persecuted Christians in Najran. Abyssinia invaded in response. Arabia's south became a battleground of empires and faiths. Meanwhile, the Adnan Arabs lived in the north. They traced their lineage to Ishmael, son of Abraham. Their tribes filled the Hijaz, Najd, and beyond. Mecca became their spiritual center. Mecca was more than a desert city. It was a sanctuary, a meeting place for traders and pilgrims, a crossroads of cultures and faiths. At its heart stood the Kaaba, covered in cloth, filled with idols. Yet beneath polytheism lingered ancient monotheism. Legend said Abraham and Ishmael had built it. Tribes gathered for trade fairs like UKO. Poets recited verses that shamed enemies or glorified kin. Poetry was their newspaper, their history book. Every battle, every betrayal, every alliance immortalized in rhyme. Arabs prized eloquence above riches. A poet could unite tribes or incite war. Their language was a treasure of precision and music. Even enemies admired its beauty. But the desert bred harshness, scarcity of water led to fierce rivalries. Tribes raided each other for survival. Vendettas could last generations. Yet honor was sacred. Hospitality was a duty. A guest was protected even from his host's worst enemy. Generosity was praised in song and story. There was no central government. Arabia was fragmented into countless tribes. Each tribe was its own nation, its own law. Loyalty to the tribe was absolute. Religion was diverse. Idol worship dominated most regions. Every tribe had its own gods and shrines. Pilgrimages were made to sacred stones and wells. But pockets of monotheists remained. Wamphas sought the religion of Abraham. Jews lived in Yathrib and other towns. Christians dwelled in Najran on the Gulf Coast. The north saw Roman and Persian influence. Ghassanids were Arab Christian allies of Byzantium. Lakhmids served the Sassanid Empire. These buffer states controlled trade and politics. Arabia was not isolated. Goods, ideas, and faiths crossed its sands. Merchants brought silks, spices, and stories. Travelers spread tales of foreign empires. In cities like Mecca and Yathrib, markets bustled. Merchants counted silver coins from Byzantium and Persia. Languages mixed: Arabic, Aramaic, Greek, Persian. Arabia was poor, yet connected to the world. Despite this, ignorance ruled. Female infanticide was practiced in some tribes. Slavery was widespread. The strong oppressed the weak. Pride and ancestry created divisions. Lineage determined worth. A noble lineage was prized above all. But it also sparked endless feuds. Yet there was a code of ethics. Courage was admired. Loyalty was absolute. Generosity defined greatness. A man's word was his bond. Breaking an oath brought shame to generations. Justice was personal and tribal. Blood feuds enforced harsh equality. Into this world was born Muhammad, and Mecca to the tribe of Quraysh. He grew up among merchants and poets. He saw both the splendor and cruelty of his people. He traveled on caravans to Syria and beyond. He witnessed the faiths of Jews and Christians. He reflected on the idols in the Kaaba. He pondered the meaning of life, of God. But before that message would come, Arabia waited in the shadows of its own contradictions, a land of generosity and vengeance, of faith and ignorance. The Arabs before Islam were not a single people. They were a patchwork of tribes and kingdoms, a people of poets and warriors, of merchants and raiders. Their lands held ruins of forgotten empires, inscriptions in ancient scripts, temples buried in sand, stories half remembered around campfires. They had seen Rome and Persia rise and fight. They sold camels and spices to both sides. They played empires against each other, yet they remained fragmented. Empires looked on Arabia as a wild frontier, too barren to conquer fully, too divided to unify, but rich enough in trade to matter. In the south, mighty dams watered fields. In the north, trade routes brought wealth. But no king ruled all of Arabia. No city commanded every tribe. Their destiny was unwritten. The desert preserved them from conquest, but also denied them unity. They waited for something to bind them. As the sun set behind dunes, elders told old tales of giants who built cities and defied God, of prophets who warned and were ignored, of peoples destroyed by wind and fire. Children listened wide-eyed, learning pride and caution. They learned that arrogance led to ruin, that generosity built alliances, that poetry preserved memory. They memorized genealogies back 100 generations. They recited heroic deeds of ancestors. They promised to avenge blood spilled. They swore loyalty to their tribe, but they also sang of lost loves, of oases found in the desert, of the sun of rain on dry earth, of the sadness of exile. This was Arabia before Islam, a land of beauty and brutality, of wisdom and ignorance, of division and waiting. Waiting for a man who would change everything. Waiting for a message that would unite them. Waiting for the dawn after endless night. This is the story of the Arabs before Islam, a story of humanity in raw form, a story of survival, pride, and hope, a story that leads us to the next chapter. Stay tuned for part 2, The Arabs After Islam. If you liked this story, please give it a like and share it. If you have any questions you'd like us to answer, leave them in the comments. Thank you for watching.